Today we're going to talk about the modern metal songwriter's new guitar amp plugin called Clairvoyant. This is an all-in-one guitar player's holy grail. It has everything you could possibly need, from clean tones to mid-gain to really heavy distorted tones. It also has an extensive pedal collection of different effects and all the other little tools you need to quickly get in, record your guitar tracks, and make some awesome sounding music. Now, the guys over at Modern Metal Songwriter have given all Raytown Production subscribers 20% off of their plugin suite. All the information to get your 20% off is in the description, so be sure to check that out. Okay, so here is the Clairvoyant amp suite. Pretty simple, straightforward user interface. We have gain control, low, mid, high. We have three different amp styles right here. We have a heavy, so this is a very distorted, modern metal or hard rock tone. We have mid, which is like a more of a crunchy type of guitar tone, and then low, which is for more clean type guitar sounds. A feature that I think is actually pretty awesome is this tilt knob. This is just a tilt EQ, I think, but basically allows you to quickly dial in a brighter or darker guitar tone based on how you typically like your guitars to sound. And this is something that I kind of wish was on other guitar amp sims. Now they have level control here, and if you want to get super fancy, you can click on this thing and then it spins around. But I ain't fancy. Now, there's something I want to point out that was not super intuitive to me, but this is actually a button, this enhance thing. If you click on it, you can see it's engaged. But what I didn't realize was that this gray little knob behind this button actually can turn. I'm not exactly sure what it does, but to me, it kind of sounds like it tightens up any of the mud or flub in a guitar tone and maybe does like some EQ shelving or something. I have a feeling it's very similar to like an Andy Sneap trick, and it has a similar sound to it. All in all, it has everything that you probably could ever need to cover if you make modern rock or metal music. And at the top here, we have a bunch of different presets that you can scroll through. So we go to the factory presets. Before you start recording or doing anything, you should click on this, because what this does is this automatically adjusts the input gain so that all these presets and all these knobs are going to work the best that they can. Okay, if you want to get nerdy about it, it's basically setting up the right gain staging for this plugin. We also have three different controls here. This one controls a gate. I actually really like how it's set at 35. And then you have input and output controls. This thing that looks like a tuning fork is exactly what it sounds like, right? It's a tuner. So you can play a note on your guitar, and then you can actively tune while you're recording or tracking your guitars. You should always be retuning your guitar when you're recording. More features, if that wasn't enough, is we have compression. They allow you to dial in the amount of compression you want, pre or post. So if you want it to compress your DI track or the sound of your guitar going into this amp, you can do that. You just leave this off as default, and then you can compress this on your DI, or you can push the post button, and now you're compressing the amped signal. So you can kind of control the waveform a little bit better, squeeze it, and make it really full. The only other setting that they have here is the speed, so I'm guessing the speed is equivalent to the attack time. Now, they have this pitch tab. This allows you to add artificially generated harmonies onto your guitar leads. So this is really, really cool if you want to do like harmonies on a solo or something like that. You can come in and just like quickly throw an octave up or an octave down if it's a really heavy part, just to give it a little bit more melody or aggression if you need it. And if you want a little bit more granularity in terms of pitch, you can actually uncheck the stepped, and you can dial in the pitch based on non-tonal values. So if you want something to be off so many cents or whatever, you can dial that in exactly how you want it. I find this sounds the best if you keep the mix really low. And if you're feeling like you still don't have enough control over your tone, guess what? You have the EQ button, which allows you to add in additional EQ. And this is going to be much more surgical than the tone knobs that you have here on the interface. So this EQ, you can just click on it, and if you use your mouse wheel, you can adjust the Q value, which is super helpful. So if you have like a weird resonance or something that you need to get rid of, you can just make a it really tight like this and then cut that out. You can actually right click on these nodes and change the type of EQ band that is. So you can do a low pass, you can do high pass, low and high shelf, or peak. So if you always just get rid of all your bass, you can put on a high pass filter and you can roll off everything below 80 hertz, for example. So that's going to keep your tone really tight, and then you can save this as a preset so you don't have to mess around with this next time you have to record something. So you're going to be good to go. You just pull up your preset and you're off running. And if 4 bands isn't enough for you, you can just click on this and add additional bands. If that wasn't enough, we also have the option to apply oversampling, and this is something that I typically recommend, but this is going to help reduce aliasing artifacts. What I find is the sweet spot for oversampling, if your computer can handle it, is 4x oversampling. But trust your ears. Sometimes higher oversampling doesn't necessarily mean higher sound quality. So find one that fits for your style. Over here, we have 2 buttons to undo and redo any moves you make, because inevitably I'll make an adjustment and then not like what it did, and I don't have a way to go back, but because we have the undo and redo, we can take care of that. And finally, you have the ability to dial in multiple different tones using this A and B setting so that you can shoot out different tones in your song. So dial in what you like, and then if you're not sure if you quite like that tone, then you can switch over to A or B setting, completely change all the settings, and then you can shoot it out against that other tone in real time. And then you have this little question mark here that opens up the user manual. So that is just the main amp. We have a lot more features. Check this out. Down here, if we go to the pedal section, we have a whole bunch of super fun, different effects that we can play with. By default, this overdrive pedal is on. In the manual, they say it's a modded tube screamer type sound. It sounds good. That's why it's on by default. So you can help really drive up the gain of your amp just by coming in here and making sure this is enabled and then playing with the tone and the gain here. If you want a really crazy, fuzzy sound that almost sounds like a synth and just adds a ton of aggression and weight to your song, you can come put on the Fuzz Pedal. They have a LoFi pedal, which actually sounds pretty amazing. So if you want like a radio type sound effect, or you're trying to find a cool tone for a transition in between a part of a song and you want something that sounds like lo-fi so you can really build intensity up to the next part, you can just come here and automate this on. And then the 2 things that I use all the time, anytime I'm using leads or sometimes even with rhythm guitars, is a delay and reverb. The delay has a bunch of options. You can sync this right to the tempo of the song. You just come here and put in what your tempo is. Now, one feature I do wish this had was to pull the tempo information straight from the DAW. That way, if you have a bunch of crazy like tempo changes, everything stays in sync, but you can always automate that in anyway, so it's not a big deal. I'm just lazy and I want it to always just be quick and easy for me. So maybe in a future update, we'll get that feature. You have the option to dial in the mix, which is super important because you don't want your delays to overwhelm your lead guitar. And you can see here we have an option to either have it synced up, or you can have it in free mode, which basically allows you just to put in exactly what the millisecond value is. They also give you the option to add in high pass and low pass filtering. You can roll off all the sub energy. That's something I always recommend doing. High pass, I actually like to roll this way, way down to like 5K or less for guitars, because I don't want the echoes to take up a lot of space. You also have feedback left and right, so you can add additional number of repeats. That's basically what feedback is it just how many times is it going to repeat? And then you have an option to make the delay ping pong, which means it's going to bounce from left to right. I like to do this on faster note divisions like 8th note or triplet 8th or 16th notes. It just gives it a big sense of space, and I'll demo this all for you in 1 second. Finally, they have a reverb that sounds pretty amazing. We're going to check that out as well. You have all the options you need, including size, which gets really, really big, like hall or almost chamber-like. And then when it's smaller, it sounds more like a room. Then you have an option to control the width, which is nice. If you're trying to build intensity, you can make it sound really small or sound massive on a chorus. And again, we have the options for high and low pass filter with different modifications. So we have like a chorus effect to kind of just modulate the reverb and make it sound a little bit more interesting, and then a level control. All right, so that's it, right? That's got to be all the features. Well, Actually not. They have one more page of really cool things, and this is something I actually think is really awesome. If we go to this big square, this is actually like a guitar cabinet. This is a legit guitar impulse loader and blender all in one. It's built into this plugin, which is so nice. And it comes with 10 different impulse responses, or you can load your own impulses. Not only that, but you can blend the different impulses, okay? So they give you two options here. And this allows you to kind of find and blend multiple different IRs so you can get a really unique tone really quickly. So let's say something has the top end sizzle that you really like, but it's kind of muddy. You can blend that with a really tight, clean IR and get the best of both worlds. You can also control the volume and the delay of the impulse responses. So if you have different impulses from different manufacturers, you can dial in the delay to make sure that they are in sync and perfectly in phase with each other. So you have all the tools here, including a polarity inversion switch that allows you to get the most out of your IRs. So this is a session that I always use to shoot out guitar amp sims. So if you ever want to compare the sound of this, you can just go through my other guitar amp sim reviews. This song is called Reawaken, and it's by a band called Every Hour Kills. I have a link to download all of the multi-tracks for this song in the description. So if you want to learn what a modern metal song looks like track by track, and how they arrange like this crazy complex song, you can go and just download all the multi-tracks and start playing with them yourself. It's pretty cool. All right, so this is what it sounds like without any guitars. Here we go. So let's hear what the Clairvoyant amp suite sounds like in this track. So we're going to be feeding it these guitar DIs. This is actually two different DIs on the left and right side. Sounds like this. Okay, so let's just go through the default settings. I'm going to turn the oversampling to 4x. Here we go. Let's add a little enhance to it. Little reverb. Maybe some delay. So the tempo is 140, so we can just set 140. Set our high and low pass filter to keep it nice and tight and clean. It's echoing a little bit too long, so what we can do is just dial this feedback back a little bit, and it'll just keep it a little bit tighter. Yep, so that's less repeats. Let's go a little bit faster on this delay timing. Yeah, I'm kind of liking that. Let's add a little compression, and we'll do it on the way in, okay? So before the amp sim, so we're not going to check anything. We're just going to click this power button to enable this. And you hear it just immediately thickens up that guitar tone, right? Let's make it a little bit slower. I want to really be able to hear and feel the guitar pick dig into the strings. And to do that, we want a little bit more attack. So to my ears, if we want to let the guitar pick attack come through more, we actually want to slow the speed down. Right, you can hear all of the pick attack is there. If we speed this up, you can hear that we kind of lose that really aggressive, sharp pick attack. Instead, it just sounds perfectly flat. Sometimes that's what you want, but in this case, I like a little bit more of a dynamic sound, so I'm actually going to dial the speed back just a hair. Let's see what this fuzz does. Oh, that's cool. That is a pretty cool sound. I could see that being really cool if you want to layer that in a really heavy part of a song, because it kind of has this like octave fullness to it. Pretty awesome. All right, let's check out the lo-fi. So the grid is like a bit crusher. And lo-fi to me kind of sounds like a high-pass filter, like they're rolling off all the bass frequencies. Let's dial in some like heavier, more aggressive tones. All right, so we're gonna go to the mid setting. Sounds pretty good right out of the gate. Let's hear what it sounds like in the mix, just not changing anything. Oh. That is legit. And that tone really works for that song. I had reverb and delay on by accident, but whatever, it still sounded awesome. So if anything, it's probably a little bit tighter now. Let's dive into the different tones you can get using these knobs. To me, that low sounds kind of boxy in this song, just probably because of how low these guitars are tuned. But it actually sounds pretty good right at noon. So I probably wouldn't mess with this much at all. Maybe just roll it back a tiny bit. So if you want to get rid of all the boxiness, the mid knob is going to be your best friend. But I think if you do that, you're going to kind of punch a hole in your mix. So use this with caution, okay? So you want some of it there to give the guitars some weight, especially on smaller speakers. A lot of times people are going to listen to your music on earbuds or something. If you cut all the mids out, you're never going to hear them. You're just going to hear a static and maybe some low-end rumble. So be careful with this mid knob. But it's very musical and it's in a really good spot for crafting a really good non-muddy guitar tone. So this is also in a good spot. It's not too high where it turns into sizzle. It's just in a spot where it kind of brings the presence of the guitars up. So pretty cool. If you want a more chill, laid back guitar tone, you can just pull this down. There's still enough of the mids in there that it still sounds good. Let's check out what this tilt knob does. If you look at the angle, it's basically what it's doing to the EQ, I think. It's tilting the EQ so that it's cutting all the lows here and then extending the top end. If we go the other way, it's raising the lows and then cutting the top end. So if you have a really good tone here and you wish it was just a tiny bit brighter or darker, you just come this tilt knob and just dial it in just right. All right, let's check out this enhance button. So let's turn it off. So to me, it sounds like it's doing two things. It's definitely tightening up the low end. I can hear it like grabbing onto like the woofiness, especially on the chugs, and just like a multi-band compressor and just squeezing the bottom end of it. But it's also doing something to like the harsh range in the top end of the guitar. If you listen to it, it basically takes the sizzle out, almost like it's like an EQ, like, I don't know, like 4K or 2K or something like that. And it's just cleaning up the top end so you could maybe turn this up louder and it wouldn't get irritating or bright or anything. Okay, so really listen to those two areas. I don't know, I kind of like it like cranked, like at least 100, if not 200%. it does all the processing that I would do on my guitars automatically. So that's awesome. Let's check out the last guitar amp tone that they have, which is the heavy tone. So you're getting now like that really top end sizzle sound to it. It's a very modern sounding thing. It's going to sound super wide in a mix if you have a bunch of these guitars panned hard left and right. So let's dial in the different gain and settings and see how diverse this amp is. So something I think that a lot of amps have a hard time getting right is like this low gain region, but this feels pretty good to me. Some of the notes you are getting clean, and then it kind of builds as the pick attack is more aggressive. I probably wouldn't ever go above like 7 on this. There's a ton of gain here. And if you want to keep some clarity and the musicality in your song, I'd keep it below 7. So this low knob's adding a lot of like woolliness to the song. I probably would just dial it back a little bit. To me, we'll see. This enhance button might actually fix all those. So we'll see. We'll keep going. Again, this is like the total like 90s or like early 2000s scooped metal tone. I would avoid cutting the mids on this, if anything. Maybe boost it a little bit just so the guitars have a little bit more weight in the mix. Otherwise, you're going to run into problems where you only hear sizzle and, again, that low energy woof. On this particular amp, I don't like what the high knob does at all. I would maybe roll it back. It already has a ton of that top sizzle sound to it. All right, let's see what the tilt does. I actually really like this tilt feature because I had something I thought I liked a lot, and then this tilt knob allows me to just kind of nudge it a little bit more in a direction that the song might need, right? So when I play this back, I can use this tilt knob to make it fit into the song better. If it feels like it's a little too bright or doesn't have enough weight to it, while we're playing it back in the context of the song, we can just tilt this the other way. And I kind of like it with the tilt like this. I had dialed in way too much top end, but this tilt knob just makes it so easy to kind of make the tone right without having to go back and readjust all these knobs. Awesome feature, guys. I love this one. All right, let's try the enhance. This particular amp, I do like a little bit of the top end there, and I feel like at 200% enhanced, it's taking too much of that away, but I really am kind of liking what's happening, you know, right at about 100%. Man, it sounds good. If we go to the guitar impulse response section, let's just scroll through the different IRs that we have, and again, we can load in or blend them any way we want. So we're going to pull this all the way over to the A side, so we're only listening to these IRs, so we can hear all the different sounds that come default with this plugin. Here we go. So this is IR 1, 2, so this is like a very modern sounding IR. I really like these first two, just they cover like the gamut for all the different tones that I typically need when I'm mixing music. This one is if you just want your guitars to fit in and just add weight and heaviness. And this is if you want to bring a little bit of tension to the guitars, right? It's going to add a little bit of that extra width and the brightness of like a very modern sound. So if you have it set up just by default, you could just kind of blend this IR until you find the right amount of sizzle and the right amount of weight. You can do this with any IR. All right, let's play the chorus. Let's try that mid tone that we had dialed in earlier. And what we can actually do is set this up on the B channel so that I can just switch back and forth in real time so you can hear those differences. Here we go. So pretty impressive little plugin. Again, if you liked what you heard, you can go and check out this plugin. I have links to everything in the description, including a 20% off for all Raytown subscribers. So if you're looking for a really good all-in-one guitar tone solution, you should probably check out the Clairvoyant plugin. It has everything covering from clean guitar tones to a mid-gain kind of hard rock or rock guitar tone to the high-end, very modern metal guitar tones. But the interface is very easy to use, quick and intuitive. We have oversampling options to make sure that we're minimizing any of our aliasing artifacts. And then we have an extensive effects section that allows you to dial in fuzz, overdrive, lo-fi sound effects, delays and reverbs. And then finally, they have probably the easiest to use and nicest looking impulse loader I've ever seen. And is all built into one plugin. Not to mention they also have tuners and compressors and all that other stuff. So what did you think of this plugin? Did you think it sounded competitive with the plugins that you use? And if not, let me know what plugins you're using when you're mixing music. So with that, I want to thank you so much for your time and attention today. My name is Bobby Balo. I'm the mixing and mastering engineer at Raytown Productions, and I hope to see you in another video.